So Tuesday night, this a week from tonight, you guys will submit your first practice round decisions. Okay, we'll have 5 practice rounds. Again, the winner of the rounds, they get a bye. They get an A for the week. Everybody else gets an F. Okay, everybody else gets a 0. Now you get to make up for that 0 then by answering the questions that I will assign. Okay, so Tuesday you'll make decisions. Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, probably after my law class, I'll process the round. So I won't get it done until about 10:30, something like that. If I forget, you guys might have to remind me. And then Thursday we'll show up. We'll kind of go over the round a little bit. We'll go over, as the class goes on, we'll go over the previous week's assignment, because I want you guys to see the things that I'm looking for. Right? That's what the assignments are going to be about, is stuff from the financials, et cetera, et cetera. And I want you guys to see what I'm looking for. Okay? And then we'll go over the round, and then we'll go over the coming assignment, the assignment that you'll need to do for that next Tuesday. I think assignments will be due on Tuesday then. Okay. Assignments are usually fairly short. By that I mean 2 to 3, maybe 4 questions. It'll just kind of depend on the nature of the questions. But they're questions that you guys have to do a little research. You have to, in a lot of cases, you're going to have to do a little math. You know, I might ask you Team Baldwin didn't meet their potential. You'll see that there's an actual and a potential. And Team Baldwin didn't meet their potential. How many sales did they give up? Or how many sales, you know, what dollar amount of sales did it leave on the table because it didn't meet its potential, right? So you got to look at the math. You got to use some percentages and look at the math and look at the sales price and some different things like that. So that's kind of how it'll go. And then after then, we're just going to be into this weekly mode of competition, Tuesday decisions, Thursday review, Tuesday decisions, Thursday review, till about the last 3 or 4 weeks, and that's when I'll get you guys that Comp XM, which will be an individual thing. Okay. In terms of the assignments too, you're going to do teams when it comes to making the decisions and everything. The assignments themselves are individual. Now, can you work on them together? Sure, but make sure you write your own and make sure that's in your own words. Make sure on and on and on. Okay. So those are individual assignments, right? They're not a team assignment. So each and every person needs to submit that assignment to the Dropbox. And if I don't have Dropboxes set up, I will, okay, for each of the practice rounds and the competitive rounds. So any questions about those? Okay. There's some PowerPoints here, and I know you guys probably don't like PowerPoints that much, but these are more just to remind me so I don't forget to go over something. So the timeline, some of this we've already done, right? Okay, step 1, go to capsim.com, get registered. I think, is everybody in here registered? Okay, super. Okay, step 2, create the account, Step 3, log in. So you guys have already done all that. Once you're logged in, click on the capstone icon, go to the getting started. View the introductory lesson, okay? There should be a little video that you guys can listen to. I don't know, it's 3-4 minutes long. I don't know if you guys have done that yet or not. It's worth listening to, because it's relatively short, but it just gives you kind of a quick overview. Okay. And then it says after that, click on the guide, okay? And you can find that either by going to the help thing up above, or I think there's some other ways that you can get to the guide. My suggestion is it's PDF. It's 30-some pages, if I'm not mistaken, is that you just download that and put it on your USB drive or something, okay? Put it onto something so you kind of have it with you. That's just my suggestion. It's going to be accessible online. Okay, but there may be times when you just want to refer to it separately. There's going to be a lot of times maybe when you're in your team that you're going to have 2 or even 3 computer screens going, where one person on the team is maybe looking at the guide and one person's maybe looking at the Capstone Courier, bless you, and the other person might be making the actual decisions, right? Okay, so there's going to be a lot of times when you're doing that. Having the guide downloaded just makes it a little bit simpler, in my opinion. Okay, complete the rehearsal tutorial. We'll get into that a little bit today. Let you guys kind of do that. Hopefully I can come around. That's there's going to be a few times in this class where I'm going to say, that's something I don't know how to do because I don't get to do it. As the instructor, there's just a few little pieces of this that I can't really get into and do unless I actually did it for you. You know, I think I can log in for you guys and take your place, and I could do it in that fashion, but that wouldn't be any fun. So, so you'll get started. You might be able to complete the rehearsal tutorial even today. Okay, I don't know how long it takes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half hour. Okay, you can go back and redo it. Okay, you can practice. They've changed it. I really don't like the new version. They've had this the last couple of years. It's kind of an online version. It's a little more abbreviated. In the past, you could download an Excel version, and I'll talk a bit about the Excel thing in a little bit. And it was better, I thought, to go back because you actually got to make more decisions and do some different things. Being a typical guy, okay, when I did it, I didn't bother reading any of the directions. I just played the game about 10 times and got my butt whipped about 10 times. And then finally I went back and looked at the instructions where it kind of gives you some hints and tells you some things that you might want to consider. And then I did pretty well, okay? So that's just a little hint. You know, you might want to read the guide. You might want to do some of those things before you actually play the rehearsal. Otherwise, you're going to play the rehearsal and just get throttled, okay? Open the rehearsal. Join a company. You guys don't get to do that. I'll assign you to companies when we choose teams on Thursday, okay? My guess is, like I said, I'll probably have the distance students all as one team, and then I'll divide you guys up into 3 other teams. So we got 2, 4, 6, 8 here, so we'll have probably 2 teams with 3 people, and then 1 team might just have 2, okay? Is that right? 6, 8? Yeah, that'd be right. You will, okay, complete the situation analysis. That's step 8. It says certainly we want to do that, and I might walk you through a little bit of that today, just so you can get started. Because it'd be nice if you worked on it before Thursday. You know, then you come get some time on Thursday to get it all finished and everything. The assignment part of your grade, that 10% of your grade that says assignments, okay, that's all this up front. Okay, that should all be done by the end of this week. Okay, by Tuesday, that should all be done. You guys should have 10% of your grade already locked in, right? That's the introductory quiz, okay, it's the rehearsal, and it's the situation analysis. Okay, so you get all that done. You don't have to submit anything. You don't have to put any of those in a Dropbox. You don't have to do anything like that. My capstone, I get in and look at it, tells me that you guys have finished those things. Okay, tells me how you did and all that other stuff. So, okay. Then Thursday too, when you get into teams, we'll try to do that. Like I say, Thursday I won't take a lot of time. You know, probably talk about strategy a little bit. We'll select the teams, make sure the situation analysis has gone good, or you guys got any questions about that. Okay. Then the major thing that you guys have to do as a team is pick one of the 6 available strategies. Okay, and I'll probably, I'll talk about strategies on Thursday. Okay, there's 6 strategies that they talk about in the game. Okay, I go back to me, there's 2 basic strategies, and that's pretty similar to what they have up here. The basic strategies are you can be low cost or you can be a differentiator, right? Okay, you can be low cost or you can be a differentiator. And if you look here, you know, they say you can be a broad cost leader, so you can be a cost leader, or you can be a niche cost leader, or you can be a product life cycle cost leader, right? So you're a cost leader. There's just 3 ways that you can go about doing it, and it's the same with differentiation. Okay? Yeah, question, Jordan.
During our simulation, does our business have more than one product?
Yes. Yep. Your business will have 5 products at least to start with. Okay? At least to start with. And then you'll make choices about that as the game goes on. Okay? You may end up with more or less. Okay? It kind of depends on which strategy you choose. So, well, when we go through the strategies, we'll kind of talk a little bit about each of those and how you want to pursue it a little bit. The guide gives you some good advice. Better yet, there's more good advice when you're in here looking at the some of the tutorials and stuff that are available for you. You know, go look over in the help thing. Like I said, spend some time with this thing. You know, go look at the help thing and listen to some of those things. They're pretty quick, but they give you some pretty good advice as how you want to pursue those strategies. The people that spend the most time doing that are the people who will probably be the most successful. Okay, that's almost without exception. The people that want to get in there, they really want to study the strategies. Because I'll say, this is the 7th time of 1,000 times that I'll say this. The team that most boldly and aggressively pursues its strategy, okay, but not recklessly, will be the team that's the most successful. Okay? And generally speaking, none of the teams do what I would call being very bold. Okay? Just to kind of give you an idea. And that's because when you start, you're nervous and you're conservative. You know, so you guys understand that from football sometimes, right? You come out and you're just kind of conservative. You kind of want to, right? Maybe that's the way coach wants it or whatever. It's kind of like playing prevent defense. You know, it doesn't prevent anything, right? Okay? And so instead you got to take the offensive, I think, to be really successful in this game, just to give you an idea. And then it says up to 8 practice rounds. We're going to have 5 practice rounds and then 8 competitive rounds. 13 weeks. That's what we're going to have left in the semester. So each week it just breaks down. You know, it'll get into kind of a routine. The first 5 weeks, first practice rounds, you guys are going to be scratching your head. Again, I reiterate that you guys are going to be scratching your head. You're going to be hating on me a little bit because you don't really understand the game and you don't really understand it. And you're going to get poor grades on your assignments because you don't really understand it, and on and on and on, okay? And so you're going to be all mad. And then like about the time the practice rounds get over, you know, the light bulb starts to come on a little bit and you'll start to kind of get it. That's just been my experience, okay? And it could be either side of that by a few weeks, but generally speaking, that's kind of been my experience. Okay, step 2 here when we get into making the actual decisions is you've got the option of doing your decisions based on the web spreadsheet or else downloading the Excel spreadsheet. That's a personal choice. Okay, they're similar and you make the decisions in the same way and on and on and on. For me, downloading the Excel one, I'd put it in the same folder I would the PDF guide, okay, and have it on your jump drive or something like that. For me, that's a much easier way to make decisions and whatnot. You could also, and this isn't a big deal anymore, it was kind of when we first got this game, but you can also make decisions offline then. You know, if you're sitting at home and you weren't on the internet, you could sit and make all your decisions on the Excel deal, and then when you got online, you could it would basically automatically upload them then when you logged in. Okay, and so I kind of like the Excel version. You don't have to be connected to the web. You know, if the internet went down while you're sitting there making your decisions on the web spreadsheet, you might go, oh my God, you know, right? The Excel one you wouldn't care because when the web came back up, you could upload your decisions and away we'd go. Okay, so but that's kind of up to you. You'll get in and you'll feel that around and you'll make that decision yourselves which one you want to use. I'll tell you this though. In either event, you'll see when you download the Excel spreadsheet, and I don't know if this is true on your rehearsal or not. We'll take a look today when you guys are messing around on that. But up in the corner, when you download the regular spreadsheet or making decisions of the spreadsheet, there's little red triangles. Okay, if there's a little red triangle, it means that there's a note about that particular square or decision. It's really, really good to read all of those. It's a really good idea to read all of those. Okay, it's easy to skip past them. All you got to do is hover over it, and then it should bring up the note. Okay, it gives you a lot of information in those that isn't in the guide and that isn't available otherwise. So you hover over it, that thing pops up, and you read that. It gives you a lot of really good advice. So my recommendation is read those. Okay. Click decisions. One thing you got to remember if you're doing the Excel spreadsheet is this over here. You do have to enable the macros. Okay, there's some macros involved in this, and so you click, you download it, and you guys can do that today. You should be able to download the spreadsheet. I think you can even if you're not assigned to a team. Okay, and then you can enable the macros and take a look at it and make sure that that works and everything. Okay, click on add-ins in the menu bar. And then you can start making the decisions. You can take a look at that. It's got 2 ways of doing it. You know, this says decisions here. These little icons mean stuff too. And my eyes aren't good enough even when I get the regular Excel thing to look at the little icons and tell what they mean. You guys will probably figure those out, but you can just down or click the decision thing. You can also look at other things. It's got two menus up there, both icons and written, so however works best for you guys. Okay, competition rounds are just basically a repeat. What we do, this question gets asked pretty often, but everybody goes back to 0 after the practice rounds, or not 0, you go back to the start after the practice rounds, okay? So you can completely foul up in the practice rounds and who cares, okay? Because you'll go back to the very start, okay, when we start the competitive rounds, everybody will be even again. So it doesn't carry over, right? So if you make a big foul up in the practice rounds, shrug it off and say, oh well, and then the competitive rounds get started and away you go. Same thing, same things. You get to the comp exam. I'm not going to worry a lot about that right now, because that's 8 weeks down the line or 10 weeks down the line. It's about 10 weeks down the line, right? And you guys would forget it anyhow. So we'll talk about that when you get there. So, okay. There's one. Let's go through the introduction here too. Okay, why do we do this? Why do we simulate? That's not stimulate, that's simulate. We do it because it's no risk, right? There's no risk. You get to look at the different strategies and how effective or ineffective they might be, right? I can tell you this, each strategy can be a winning strategy. I'll say this, I've said it in other classes. So the one that seems to be the most difficult is the life cycle differentiation, okay? That's the one strategy through the years that I have never seen a team be extremely successful at for whatever reason, okay? If you choose that strategy, I love you and I want to see you do really well at it. It's just the one that for various reasons, I think there's some really important reasons why it's difficult for that strategy to be successful. We might talk about that more when we look at the strategies. Okay, this will get to be kind of fun. The first few weeks it won't be. It's going to be really frustrating. So, you know, by the end of the semester, it always gets pretty good reviews. Everybody's usually pretty happy at the end of the semester that they didn't have to listen to me lecture all semester and they got to play a game and do some fun things, right? It just takes a while for you guys to get into it. Selectivity versus integration. Yeah, I'm not even sure what they mean there. We compress the time, right? You get to run a whole year's worth of business, you know, in 1 week, right? Basically what we're doing. So, oops. The background is this, okay? We were one big company, and what happened is, much like what happened in the 1980s when the government broke up AT&T. You guys don't remember that, of course, because none of you were born then. But AT&T used to be the only telephone provider basically in the United States of America. It was the only long-distance provider. Okay, you guys don't remember that at all, right? It was it. It owned all the phone lines. It controlled all of the long-distance phone calling, et cetera, et cetera. Long-distance phone calling used to be a special deal. If you got to call your grandma or something on a Saturday night, you know, your mom usually sat there with a stopwatch type of thing or set the timer because you'd talk for 5 minutes because back then it was like 2 bits a minute. Okay, 2 bits is 25 cents. I'm sorry for you. So it was expensive. You know, it was $1 or $2 just to call grandma on Saturday night, wish her happy birthday or something, right? Okay, government came in and said AT&T's got this monopoly and we're going to break it up. And that's kind of what they did. And they broke it up into, I think it was about 8. We're going to do 6 here, but AT&T got broken up into 8 or 11. Verizon was one of them. Mountain Bell used to be what we had here in Montana. It was called Mountain Bell. There was Pac Bell, Southern Bell, on and on and on. Some of them have since combined again. And then Verizon now, of course, is a national carrier for wireless. The breakup ended up being very, very important because that's what ended up driving long distance prices down. Long distance is what now? It's free, right? It's basically, it became commoditized, it became really cheap to begin with. First you could go out and buy cards, we could make long distance phone calls using a card and it was 3 or 4 cents a minute, who cares, right? And then ultimately it just became free, right? And so kind of interesting, that's kind of what's going on here. Not only did it become cheaper, but it became far more accessible and far more people. It brought in lots more customers, right? I mean, there's a lot of people, you know, that didn't use long distance hardly at all. Okay, now everybody's got cell phones, everybody's got a lot on and on and on, right? So phone and communications have completely changed, largely because of that deregulation. This industry's going through something that's similar. So we started as the same. We're going to get broken up into 6 different identical companies. Okay, you're all going to start with roughly 100 million in sales, I think it is. You're making sensors. Okay, think of sensors that might be used. I can tell you, like in my car, my check engine, my flipping check engine light comes on, right? And I take it down to the guy. He plugs his little thing in it, and he says, "It's just the sensor." He says, "It has nothing to do with the performance of the car. It's just the sensor." My brother-in-laws, who are mechanics, they say, just get a piece of duct tape and put it over the check engine light because it doesn't matter. So it's always kind of an oddball deal. But that's what you're making, are sensors like that might be in vehicles. They might be in thermostats. It might be in who knows, right? Okay, you guys are just making certain sensors that get used. There are 5 product lines, right? 5 different market segments. Okay, it's a closed marketplace, meaning we're not going to have any more competitors coming in. Okay, this is it. Okay, customers, the original equipment manufacturers, so the people that are making the cars, people that are making the thermostats, people that are making whatever. Okay, they need these for their production, right? Okay, they use them for all kinds of diverse applications, all kinds of things. Again, there's 5 clear market segments. There's a low end, traditional, a high end, a performance, and a size. So those are 5 segments. You guys will get really used to those. And customer demands really vary, right? Depending on what they need, what they want, who the customer is, on and on, right? I always find, for whatever reason, too, when we go through this, I think comparisons to the cell phone industry are kind of accurate. And you'll kind of see that as we go along, anyhow. Look into the segments. You'll start here, right? We've got a fairly good cluster here of our segments, right? They're pretty close. A lot of overlap even, right? Okay. But as the game goes on, note what happens. Okay. We will say that our products are drifting, but what's really drifting is the customer expectations, okay? But we'll get in the habit of saying, well, our product drifted or whatever, but what's really drifting are the customer's expectations. And then it's up to you guys to decide if you want to move your products along to keep up with the customer's expectations, or if you're a product life cycle person, you kind of let these ones just drift back. You let your product drift back, right? And you might introduce, you might introduce new products then to come and take their place. So you get this line of products that just kind of, so the products, your guys' products in those cases would stay static really, but the customer's expectations would move your product from one category to another. Your high-end product would become your traditional product. Your traditional would become your low-end product. Okay, everybody see how that kind of happens? Low-end customer characteristics, right? Okay, this would be me if I had a cell phone, right? I don't care about anything. I don't even care if there's a mailbox in it, or if there's a customer with a phone list. I don't know. Contact list. I could care less. Okay. Anybody that I want to call, I know their phone number. Okay. So I wouldn't care about that. I wouldn't care if I had any data. I wouldn't care about any of those things. All I'd want to do is be able to dial, like home 265, whatever my home number is, right? Okay. Golf course 265-4790, right? Okay. That's all I need to call is a few places like that. I'd have to learn Triple Dog's number because I don't know Triple Dog's number right now, but I'd get that figured out. Okay. So I don't really care. Okay. I want something that's cheap and inexpensive and pretty reliable, right? That's all I really care about. Okay. Want them to have been around for a while. I want it to be something. I'd go for one. If it was me and a cell phone, one of the old flip phones, and you see some. They advertise some. I think the Jitterbug or something, or the Cricket or whatever. They got different names for these little cell phones that do stuff. Okay. Now I don't even have one, and so I don't know all that stuff for sure. But I would be somewhere in that in that range, right? Traditional customer, okay? This is probably my wife and my kids, so they just upgraded their cell phones and they went to iPhone 5S. Does that sound right? Or is it 5C or something, right? It's not the new one. What's the new one? There's 6A or 6B or something. I don't know. Okay, so it's not the new one, but it's, you know, it's kind of it's still a nice phone. They can still do a lot of stuff. It's kind of fits a bigger market, decent market, right? There's a lot of people that want that. They don't necessarily need that up to date, absolutely, you know, cutting edge. They don't really care about that necessarily, right? The high end's cutting edge person, right? This person is the one that when Apple says they're going to introduce their new phone, they're down there standing in line, right? Take their tent, their sleeping bag, and they camp out for 3 days so that, you know, 2 minutes after Apple opens up this new iPhone, whatever, they get it, right? They just have to have it. That's what our high-end customer wants, and they just want that cutting-edge technology. Okay? So they're there waiting for that kind of stuff. The performance and the size are kind of similar to that, except maybe more specific characteristics, right? The performance people, they want something that's really got the high performance, but they don't care what the size is necessarily, or at least not so much do they care what the size is. And then the size is just the opposite, right? Because we're building something that's tiny, maybe, so we got to have something that's really small that's going to fit in there, okay? This is growing industry. Okay, it's a growing industry, and you'll see that for each segment, there's going to be separate growth rates. So you really need to pay attention to those separate growth rates for each segment, right? Okay, you can calculate just about exactly what the demand is going to be for the next year, the overall demand, by taking this year's demand and multiplying it by 1.14 or 1.5, whatever the growth rate is for that particular segment, right? Okay. You'll also see that the performance and the size categories have higher growth rates. Okay, but they also start with a lot smaller customer base. So your bigger customer bases are in the traditional and the low end. Okay, but they grow a little bit slower. Again, it's kind of like the real marketplace. Right? It's kind of like what's going on in the real marketplace if we look at cell phones or other examples like that, right? So, like it says here, the high-tech market is going to be growing at 16%. The overall is going to be 14 or 15%. If you look at the low and traditional, maybe 11, 12%, something like that. You'll see when you get to the courier, it tells you all that. It gives you all that information. Decision-making process. Here's the areas, the 4 primary areas that you're going to make decisions in: R&D, marketing, production, finance. Okay. R&D is where you choose where on that perceptual map really you want your product to be. Okay, you get to choose where you want it to be on that perceptual map, basically. Okay, one piece of advice, so I don't forget it, going into practice round credit rounds. This is really important. Okay, and you can read about it in the guide, but I'm going to be nice and give you the advice ahead of time, so you don't have to learn the hard way, but some of you might anyhow. Okay, you're making decisions. Let's say it's year 2015. Okay, and you're making decisions at the end of the year for 2016, you have to make sure that when you make those R&D decisions that the revision date of your product then is not in 2017 or 18. Okay, you can move your product as far as you want, okay, but if you get out there too far and the revision date's out there, your customers aren't going to buy what you have now. Okay, because they're going to look at it and say, why the hell do I want to buy, you know, their iPhone 6 when it's going to change next year, right? And so they won't. So your sales will really suffer in a case like that. So you got to make sure that any revisions that you make. So that puts some limitations on what you can do in your R&D. It doesn't. You can do it, like I say, you can move it out as far as you want, okay, but it'll destroy you. And so the limitations are, what you can do. Can you go, if you go to December 31st, is that going to hurt you? No, that's okay. Okay, so it's a little bit of a quirky thing in the game. In real life, it might be a little bit different than that, but you can't go out more than 1 year in terms of making those R&D types of decisions. Okay, marketing, you'll make really financial decisions about what you're going to spend on marketing. Again, there's 2 areas. that you can spend in marketing. One is like your sales force, and the other one would be more, I forget what they call it, but more just marketing, advertising. Okay, right? So marketing, you might want to hire salespeople to go out and actually sell your product. Okay, it might kind of depend on which area, okay, you focus on. I would think in the high end, you probably got more sales going to industry or whatever, you know, and so you're out there. You actually have salespeople, you know. Maybe in the lower end, you're doing more advertising and stuff. I don't know. You'll have to read the guide and kind of decide that. Production, you get to just decide how many you're going to make. Okay, how many you're going to make. Keep in mind that you've got inventory from the year before. You got to always take that. You know, you might have inventory from the year before, so you have to take that into consideration when you decide what you're going to produce. Okay, and then finance, the kind of last decision. And I say it probably ought to be, when you're going through these, that finance probably ought to be your final decision. Okay, the last thing that you want to do is make horrible decisions that would cause you to get an emergency loan. I think the guide even refers to the emergency lender as Uncle Al. Okay, Uncle Al or Guido or whatever we want to call him, right? And he's going to exact a heavy toll. Okay, so you can never actually go broke, right? Uncle Al's going to step in and make a loan and make sure he's kind of like the government. He's going to bail you out no matter how poorly you do. But he's going to exact a heavy toll if he does it. I think it's 7.5% on the front end plus interest, right? So if you borrowed $100,000, you'd pay a $7,500 fee plus the normal interest, which is 10 or 11 or 12%. Yeah, so for the year you'd pay 20 grand, you know, for that $100,000 loan, which bites, right? That bites big time. So you don't want to take an emergency loan if you can avoid it, right? Okay. Additional modules. These will come in. HR, I think, is in round 2. TQM's round 3. Labor negotiations will not be until round 6 of the competitive round, so you won't do labor negotiations in the practice rounds. And then advanced marketing you will do in round 4, I think it is. Game R&D, I kind of already went through all this stuff, so, and you'll see them as we get into it. Pro formas, there are some pro formas available. Okay, so you can make your decisions, and then you can look at the pro forma, and it will tell you what the computer thinks your company's going to look like then based on your decisions. Keep in mind the computer has no idea what your competitors are doing. Okay, so you do a pro forma, you do your finance, and it kind of tells you where you're going to be cash-wise and whatnot. It has no idea what the competition's doing. Zero. Okay, so if your competition, you know, undercuts you on price big time and sells 3 times more than you do, and all of a sudden you end up with a bunch of inventory or something left over, okay, it's not what your pro forma told you, right? Okay, and so that's how you kind of get hurt. So your pro forma is a nice tool, okay, and there's a lot of nice tools in here, but you got to keep in mind that you're competing, okay? You're competing, and you don't know what your competitors are doing, and it could be the old, you know, screw your buddy thing or something like that happens in this game. Scoring methods, I'm going to skip through. I don't use their scoring deal. I did the first semester, or maybe just one semester. I didn't really like it. And part of the reason was, for example, if you got an emergency loan on their scoring system, you basically, there's no way you could win the round. And I had a team one time that they ended up with this tiny emergency loan, and they just kicked everybody's butt otherwise. You know, they just didn't calculate their cash quite right, but absolutely destroyed everybody else. And they got beat according to this scoring system. And I said, that's not right. Says if I was a banker, you know, and they came in and they had a $500,000, I think that's what it was, $500,000 emergency loan, I'd fall all over myself lending them money given their other performance, right? I mean, I'd be begging them to let me lend them some money, right, make a little bit. And so, you know, the emergency loan in that case to me shouldn't have affected them as drastically as it did. And so I don't like their scoring system. You can look at it if you want, that's fine, but we don't spend a lot of time. I've created my own. It's a spreadsheet. It's in Excel. I got to copy and paste quite a bit of information from I copy and paste all kinds of information, but it actually only uses about six parameters. I can go over those real quick here, maybe. The 5 or 6, the main ones that I look at, okay, and I don't know what Kevin used when he used the foundation, but the main ones that I look at, the thing that's most important to me when you guys are competing is going to be earnings per share. As a shareholder, okay, you're all starting even. If this were the real world, earnings per share wouldn't be the best tool because nobody's even. You know, Microsoft is completely different than Apple when it comes to earnings per share just because of the number of shares that are outstanding, right? So it's not a valid comparison in the real world, but where you guys are all starting dead even, earnings per share to me as an investor would be the most important. And then I've got ROE as the next most important because I believe that that's vital, return on equity, right? Because it's my equity, I'm the owner, I'm the shareholder, right? So it's what you're returning to me in terms of that equity. That's the second thing. So I got earnings per share, ROE. You get scored a little bit on contribution margin, and the reason is contribution margin you'll see is a big factor in this, and so I've kind of incorporated that into the scoring system. Stock price movement. Okay, it's how much it moves. It's not who has the highest stock price, it's how much it moves from the final round, because it's what have you done for me lately, right? So if your stock price, is already at 100 and it goes to 130, nice 30% change. But if your stock price is at 20 and it goes to 40, okay, you only changed $20, right? It's less than the $30 there, but it's also a 100% gain, right? I'd rather have my, money invested with the person that was at 20 that went to 40, right? Because I'm going to double my money versus making a 30% return. So stock price. Then there's potential deductions. I do have some deductions for working capital, for leverage, and for an emergency loan. So you can get a deduction for emergency loan. It doesn't necessarily throw you out, right? Any of those deductions don't necessarily throw you out in terms of the scoring or your ability to win. They're just kind of small deductions. They take into account risk. That's the main thing I have the deductions for. Okay, you guys have heard me often say debt's always cheaper than equity, right? So in my opinion, you get out and you leverage a whole bunch, and that may be a good, valid way to succeed in this game. But it also means that you're going to take on more risk, right? And so I'm going to ding you a little bit on the risk side, just like I would in a banking situation. So I ding you a little bit on the risk, but you may be setting yourself up for some good success. So that's kind of what my scoring system will look like, and when we get into it, you guys will see that a little bit more. So, okay, I think I'll kind of quit now. We'll talk about, I'll let you guys work on the rehearsal and stuff, make sure everybody's registered, make sure everybody's doing that. Let you guys get into the situation analysis. I should take a look at that. Let's go bounce into that. I'm sorry. I want to take a look at the situation analysis. Just because I want you guys to get started. I'd like it to get done for sure on Thursday because we got a decent amount of stuff we got to do on Thursday. So. 11 people to register. Good, so that's everybody in here and 2 of mine. Okay, so I can come up to the I'm going to do this different. I'm sorry. I got to log into the team here. I'll pick Digby. So you log into the situation analysis and it comes up, right? And you just click the next buttons and you go through it. It kind of gives you an idea. It shows you, how the game progresses or how the, the segment, the demands, customer demands change throughout. I want to get up. It tells you some ideal spots, okay? Keep in mind that there's a circle there, right? And our perception or intuitively, we might think that the ideal spot's in the middle of that circle. It is not, okay? It is not. And that's what this is telling you, okay, is that the ideal spot for that particular product is something different than the middle. And it tells you how far from the middle you need to go. In the lower end, you go backwards. In the high end, you go frontwards. In the traditional, I think the ideal spot probably is pretty close to the center. Okay, but and this is an important reminder when you get ready to start playing the game. Okay, if you're we're going to look at the game as being kind of static when we look at this perceptual map up here, right? We look at that as being kind of static from round to round, but it's not static, right? It's moving the whole time. We just don't get to see that. So if I position my product at the start of the year, say, to be at the ideal spot, where's it going to be at the end of the year? It's going to be way behind the ideal spot, right? And so I have to be concerned, especially in the upper part, the high performance and size categories, the high end. Okay, I have to be concerned about where that's going to be because those are moving pretty rapidly. The low end doesn't move that fast. Okay, you look at the low end, and there's other things that are less important or more important in the low end than where it's positioned to. In the higher ends, positioning is really important. And so you may need to get your product out ahead of that ideal spot so that during the course of the year, the customer's demands basically go through that, if that makes sense, goes through the ideal spot. What you'll do, and this is probably about as far as I'm going to go, but what you're going to do here, see where the yellow things are the green? Let's say there's a green. Pea green? Is that what that? Help me out, gals. I don't know colors. Is it green? Is green close enough? Okay. So all it's telling you to do is to go through this and say, okay, in the traditional, in round 0, my center is 4.1 and 14.3, but I got to find out what the offsets are. Where does it tell me the offsets are? I might have to go look at something. Oh, offset's 0, 0. Okay, so it's down here at the bottom, right? So in the traditional, this one's going to be pretty simple. In round 0, I'm 4.1 and 14.3, right? 4.1, 14.3. In the second round, I'm 4.8 and 13.6. And then magic, I think, might happen if I get this right. Maybe I didn't do it right. 41, 14.3. Those spots once you've successfully entered the correct ideal spots are on the green sites. The rest of the table will fill in automatically. So did I mess something? 4.1, 14.3, 4.8, 13.6. Huh. Maybe I got to finish all the green ones. So then I would go to the low end, for example, and my start is 1.6 and 16.8, but my offset's a minus 0.8. So on the performance, right, a minus 0.8, so I'm going to be at 0.8 then, right, for performance. My size is plus 0.8, so I'm going to be at 17.6. And then I am going to be at, what's that, 1.3 and 17.1. Must have to fill them all in before it'll fill the rest of them. Okay, on the high end, plus 1.4, minus 1.4 on size, so I'm, what's that, 8 and 10.4. I want to make sure I got this right. And 8.9 and 9.5. Just help me out here if I'm making any mistakes. Performance is plus, so I'm 8.5 and 15.3. And I am 9.5 and 14.6. And I am 3.1 and 8.9, or 9.9, 3.1 and 9.9. and I am 3.8 and 8.9. Nope, I've got something wrong, or else it's not going to let me do it. You see where I made a mistake in there someplace? It may not let me do it. Has anybody else worked on that while I was going through this? Okay. Because it should fill in all of these as long as I've got it accurately done. And it's not, and it could be that I've got a mistake in there someplace, or it just could be that because I'm unlogged in as an instructor or whatever, it's just not letting me do it. So I might have one of you guys try that when I give you a little time here. So, okay. Anyhow, mess around on this. We might spend a little bit more time with it on Thursday, but hopefully by Thursday you guys have kind of gone through this and got it pretty well done, so we can talk about strategy and get your team some times to get together and do that. So, okay. So go ahead and get into your, make sure you're logged in. Download the Excel spreadsheet if you want to for the rehearsal, but I think you do the rehearsal online. I don't think you can download the Excel spreadsheet. And then I'll come around. I just want to check and make sure everybody's up and going. So.